All right, we're good to go.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 5 of the public hearings on the proposed merger between Canadian Pacific and Kansas City Southern, docket number 36500. Before we begin this morning, Karen Hedlund wanted to make a brief statement. Karen, go ahead.
Thank you. This morning I read a commentary on one of the industry rags that suggested that these hearings were taking too long and really weren't valuable given the thousands of pages of comments, testimony, briefs, etc., that have been filed in this case. But I just wanted everyone to know, the participants, the witnesses, and the public, that the board members find these hearings enormously valuable. We got a lot out of the ability to ask questions and engage in a little give and take. And so I, for one, and I think I'm speaking for the other board members, really do find these hearings very valuable and well worth the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I would just say you certainly spoke for me too. I saw that comment, and I don't need to reiterate. I thought it was your statement was perfect. So thank you. And I am sure I speak for all of the other 3 board members as well. So let us begin. Our first witness this morning is David Fellon of Progressive Rail. David?
Good morning. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you, Chairman Overman, and your fellow Surface Transportation Board members for allowing Progressive Rail to comment about the proposed CPKC merger to be shared in today's proceedings. Thank you as well for providing a thoughtfully organized venue that allows all of the stakeholders, both big and small, that in some shape or form will be involved within, directly connected to the proposed CPKC railway merger. The mission is critically important for the Surface Transportation Board. It's no small task, which is why I appreciate Chairman Overman and the countless others at the STB to work together to arrive at the right decision. Yesterday's and the days before and the days ahead of this testimonies are all interesting to listen to. And by the end of the day, my humble opinion, the facts that always create a rock solid foundation to build anything worthwhile upon. And that train of thought, there are 3 categories of undisputed facts that I'd like to share with the Surface Transportation Board as they continue on the critical important mission to advance a competitive and economically viable surface transportation network that meets the needs of its users. At one time, the rail industry had a 90% market share in handling merchandise of every description. When you look at the AAR's 40% market share of long distance ton miles that separate the unit train book of business away from that, the rail industry really only has a 7 to 9% market share in the merchandise category. That's pretty low. The CPKC merger is presenting to the Surface Transportation Board a never seen before in the entire industry, an opportunity that will quantifiably reverse that downward trend. Without meaningful competition being interjected in today's status quo, we will ultimately further degrade the relevance of the rail industry's service with an ever-changing business climate. On the other hand, once the CPKC merger is approved, the incredible efficiency of a single customer-centric rail carrier that connects Canada, the United States, Mexico, all within one network, one rail rate, and one trip plan will in fact become precisely what our industry needs to make meaningful market share gains in the merchandise category. Keep in mind, a significant amount of the unit train business is shifting with ever-changing weather patterns, sourcing changes, and policies in America's energy priorities. Meanwhile, there is a staggering amount of merchandise to convert off the highway and onto the railway. CPKC will be the ideal partner in making those long overdue conversions in significant boxcar volumes. It's not just boxcars, but to me, that's the big low-hanging fruit, the merchandise that can once again get back on the railroad. Meanwhile, numerous changes have washed ashore the rail industry over the past few years, and some of those changes are self-inflicted and others were seeded many years ago, which have now presented a number of realities that are fast becoming problematic. We all know what they are, and the good news is the issues can be reversed, which is precisely why CPKC Railway is laser focused on serving the needs of the industry and the public. Serving the needs of industry and the public is really something that Progressive Rail experiences from the Canadian Pacific Railway every day. highly reliable services emanating from both St. Paul Yard in St. Paul, Minnesota, Bensonville Yard in Chicago, Illinois, consistent rail car supply, their genuine interest in custom design and launch innovative truck to rail conversions, solid industrial development focus, and always being collaborative with both existing and new to rail shippers accurately describes our experiences with CP. That DNA at CP, when combined with the KCS's like-kind customer comes first strategy, is precisely what, in my humble opinion, the railroad industry needs now more than ever, in our mutual shared quest to be the first mode of choice. And you think about this in many ways, big swaths of North America have experienced way too many plant closures, which is especially true in the United States of America. In fact, the USA has never seen such a tremendous exodus of manufacturing might that has permanently moved overseas. In the vacuum of that comes the decaying communities, the genuine concerns about our future, and the ripple effects of reduced commerce, ushering in so many unpleasant social realities. Fortunately, with a successful launch of the CPKC Railway, Canada, Mexico, and the United States will have a better supply chain, create better businesses, and the local communities in and around our rails will become only stronger as they, and this is interesting, as with the good rail network, they have better greenfield, brownfield sites to offer. They have a lot more to present to potential industrial development opportunities. So they can add that to their consideration sets as they're all in the hunt for new business. CPKC is all about preserving existing agreements, plus the status quo and developing a more, for the time, set of supply chain solutions that fit within America and our bordering countries, their own plans. Bringing back heavy manufacturing in North America and preserving existing reciprocal agreements, opening up brand new gateways, ushering in real competition. At the ready, fresh new supply chains will be by design the manufacturing that is going to anchor upon a foundation that is served by the CPKC. In fact, it's set to succeed in a global arena. So if the mission at hand is to create commerce, unleash new discovery opportunities, reduce carbon, and along the way fortify the entire rail industry as a healthier, ever-growing book of business, then now more than ever, I urge the Surface Transportation Board to approve the CPKC merger without any conditions at the earliest possible opportunity. Today's Surface Transportation Board's support of CPKC is based on the aforementioned facts that have cascading effect of assuring a bright future for our entire industry for generations to come. I also thought it was interesting to hear some Amtrak and transit notes that have come up throughout the conversations. And just on a personal note, I think it's worth mentioning this, is that for years, way before there was talk of the CPKC merger, I still do take my two kids on a few trips per year, starting from St. Paul Union Depot to Milwaukee. And Amtrak's Empire Builder has always been prioritized over the former Milwaukee Road main line with safety and speed. And with each and every trip to this day, the Canadian Pacific Railways, the passengers, work their magic to keep Amtrak's passenger trains and freight, proving they can coexist and they keep them on plan. It's a philosophical priority at the top of CP, and with their communities and depend on rail and transportation for families and freight, you can see that the two work together, and I'm proud to just see that happen. And it's nice to see the combination work well. So that's what I have. I'm open to any questions. And again, we're a proud partner of CP, but all the other railroads too. I think it's important to mention that, to me, this isn't about one railroad being more successful than the other. It's about the entire industry being more successful. I think there is so much traffic. We know it's out there. It can be done. And I believe that a better CPKC and create that North America Railroad only raises the tide for all of us in the entire industry to work harder to do what's important, is not trade traffic, but go after brand new business. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions for Mr. Fellon?
I have one, Marty, if you have a second.
Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Dave, good morning. Thank you for your testimony this morning. We truly appreciate all that Progressive Rail is doing. You mentioned one thing when you're saying, in your closing, saying it should be approved without conditions. Considering everything that's going on within the network now, all the challenges that are out there, do you really believe that such a large transaction can be accomplished without conditions?
David, are you there?
I think he's on mute.
Oh, here we are. And thank you. So I do believe, this is a question that it can be done, and with the input of the Surface Transportation Board and everyone that's writing and testifying. But again, back to my point is that there is so much business out there that isn't being handled. I mean, we're 7 to 9, 10% for merchandise. And I believe that a stronger railroad that connects the three countries and creates more opportunity just raises the bar for everybody. I mean, more capital comes in, more capacity comes in. The game is everyone is doing more to create more. It's just my thought that, high tide raises all boats.
No, and I get that. I just, again, the reality is, we're not in that perfect world where, there is plenty of business out there, but the problems are not, just sort of just solved by we need a stronger railroad. I think it's the network and how the network operates. And, I'm just a little, I just wanted to get your understanding of how, with all the challenges that we have now and all the issues that are confronting the network, how something solved without first trying to add conditions to help, how we can be successful. And again, I'm not saying whether it's going to come out one way or another. I just want to get your opinion on that.
No, I do appreciate that. And my thoughts are, if we stay focused on the customer and what the customers need, that to me has got to be the guiding force as to how do we grow the industry and how do we help our customers become more prosperous. And if doing that, if we can stay focused on that, everybody wins in a big way.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other questions? All right. Appreciate your thoughts, David, as always, and your contributions.
Thank you very much for your hard work, everyone at the Surface Transportation Board, and I appreciate the venue. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to Bo Hepler, General Manager of Ray Carroll County Grain Growers. Mr. Hepler.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today regarding the KCCP transaction. My name is Bo Hepler. I'm the General Manager of Ray Carroll County Grain Growers. Ray Carroll previously submitted a letter in support of the CP-KCS transaction and opposing Canadian National's request for divestiture of the KCS line between Kansas City and Springfield, Illinois. I am here today to further voice our support for the CP-KCS transaction and expand on the importance of the Springfield line for the more than 7,900 members that comprise Ray Carroll County Grain Growers in our local cooperative. First, I would like to briefly describe Ray Carroll County Grain Growers. Our roots go back to the Great Depression, when in 1931, farmers joined together to create a local cooperative that would enable them to economically secure production inputs and create an outlet system for the commodities in which they produced. Today, we are a full-service farmer-owned cooperative with 9 locations throughout central Missouri, providing a wide range of services to our over 7,900 members. Our services include purchasing, marketing, drying, storage, and shipping of grain, including corn, soybeans, and wheat. 2 of Ray Carroll's primary grain handling facilities are in Corder, Missouri and Slater, Missouri, which are located on the KCS line between Kansas City and Springfield, Illinois. The CN's request of divestiture of this line would be detrimental to our farmer owners who rely on these facilities to market their grain. Ray Carroll primarily ships grain from these facilities and this line to Mexico. In 2021, we shipped nearly 6,500 cars, of which 81% were shipped to Mexico. The vast majority of the remaining shipments were destined to the Western United States. Our farmer members rely heavily on having access to both Mexico and the Western United States via the KCS and KCSM for competitive markets. Therefore, Ray Carroll has invested in excess of $55 million between these 2 facilities to capitalize on the KCS's efficiencies as a single line service provider to Mexico and the Western United States. The KCS has been a good partner by making its own investments in the Springfield line, investing in rail car service and providing customer service that we can count on. As a bulk commodity shipper, efficient transportation options are very important to the cooperative and our members. We have found that the KCS-KCSM service to be the most efficient option for us, and therefore investments have been made to capitalize on it. We believe the CPKCS transaction will enhance that efficiency with new line service routes and investment opportunities. This increased efficiency is the reason we support the KCS-CP transaction. In regards to forcing the CPKCS to divest of the Springfield line to the CN, however, would not only destroy the benefits that we have otherwise received from the transaction, it would also make our transportation operations substantially less efficient than they are today. In our experience, single line service is typically superior to other arrangements because of its better coordinated and eliminates inefficient interchanges. Our Slater and Quarter facilities have single line service to Mexico and parts of the Midwest via the KCS, but that single line service necessarily starts on the Springfield line. CN's ownership of the Springfield line would do away with our existing single line service to Mexico and other points on the KCS line because those trips would start on the CN. In the event the CN were to be required to grant haulage rights back to the CP, we would be left with the functional equivalent of an interline relationship because CN would have to interchange with the CPKC at Kansas City. That interchange would introduce inefficiencies that do not exist today. Those inefficiencies would be in turn have a detrimental effect on our operations, equating to disruptions from both a service and financial standpoint for our farmer members. Further, this new inefficiency would diminish the value of improvement we have made to support our members along the Springfield line and would discourage further investments. In simplest terms, the KCCP transaction will give Ray Carroll more efficient rail options than it has today. And the forced sale of the Springfield line will leave Ray Carroll and its member owners with less efficient rail options than it has today. Therefore, we respectfully urge the board to approve CP's purchase of the KCS and reject the CN's request to purchase the Springfield line. I want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank you for putting in the effort to hold these hearings. And if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Hepler. Are there any questions for Mr. Hepler? All right. Thank you much. We will move forward. Our next witness is Brian Ritter, Executive Director of Nahant Marsh Education Center. I'm not sure I pronounced that right, Mr. Ritter, but you correct me if you can.
I sure will. Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Oberman and members of the Surface Transportation Board. I appreciate the opportunity for us to share our concerns about this proposed merger. My name is Brian Ritter. I have the pleasure to serve as the Executive Director of a place called Nahant Marsh Education Center in Davenport. We are the largest urban wetland on the upper Mississippi River. We have a vibrant educational program and thriving wetlands. And we are also only within feet away of CP's rail yard and tracks. And the railroad actually dissects our property here. Of all the areas impacted by this potential merger, our communities in eastern Iowa will likely be the most negatively impacted. The draft EIS came to this same conclusion. For hundreds of miles, the railroad travels through the upper Mississippi River Valley, in some stretches only feet away from the mighty Mississippi River. And in some years, the tracks are literally within the Mississippi River. It is my opinion that the draft EIS was flawed because it failed to look at the potential hazard this merger poses to our economy, to our health, to our connection with the river, to the upper Mississippi River ecosystems and the thousands of species that call it home. The river is the primary source of drinking water for several 100,000 people in our community alone. The upper Mississippi River is one of the most important migratory flyways in the world, and it is a major economic engine of our region. It is the lifeblood of our nation. According to the Upper Mississippi River Drainage Basin, the Upper Mississippi River supports a $55 billion tourism and recreation industry built upon the serenity and adventure of the river's landscape and abundant opportunities for things like fishing and hunting. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in 2012 stated that the commercial fishing industry on the upper Mississippi River provides nearly 10 million pounds of fish at a value of nearly $4 million annually. And according to the U.S. Coast Guard, the barge industry on the upper Miss creates $673 million in revenue and over 1,000 jobs. The DIS does not sufficiently consider the risk of flooding. In our region, the tracks are within feet of the Mississippi River, and as I stated, ever increasingly are within the river in some years. In several areas along the railroad, the tracks are well within the 100-year floodplain. With the uncertainty of climate change and the trend of increased flooding, we are concerned about the potential impact of increased trains carrying increased loads of hazardous materials, including the crude oil from Alberta and North Dakota. If you consider from just one period of time, from January 1st, 2010 to December 31st, 2019, our stretch of the river was at or above flood stage for an unprecedented 355 days, or nearly 10% of the time. This is nearly threefold the increase from the 1990s and the 2000s, which had previously been the decades with most flooding. A spill during flood conditions would be nearly impossible to contain, like was the case during the historic floods in 2019, when here at Nahant, a fuel separation system at the neighboring CP rail yard was overwhelmed and spilled an unknown amount of diesel into neighboring properties, including our own properties here. Here in Davenport, our community has invested countless hours and millions of dollars over the last 25 years to restore Nahant Marsh, a former EPA Superfund site, to a thriving ecosystem that's now home to a documented 1,100 species of plants and animals, including 3 federally endangered species and 27 state listed species. We provide both long and short-term education for over 22,000 people a year and recreation for another 30,000 people annually. We are located just feet from CP's rail yard, and as I mentioned, their tracks dissect our property. The noise alone from the increased rail traffic would be devastating to our educational programming and would essentially cut us off from a third of our property. We're just one of dozens of ecologically sensitive areas that will be negatively impacted by this merger, and that was largely overlooked by the draft EIS. The EIS did not consider the upper Mississippi River Wildlife Refuge and the millions of migratory waterfowl that use this area each spring and fall. It didn't consider the federally endangered Higgins Eye mussel beds that lie between Bettendorf and Clinton, Iowa. It didn't consider the Princeton Marsh or Green Island, the Yellow River, Turkey River, Maquoketa River, or Wapsie River. The train tracks are next to, above, and sometimes in all of these biologically rich and ecologically sensitive areas. I'm proud to be part of the largest city on the upper Mississippi River that has not constructed permanent flood walls or levees, but has instead opted to leave our riverfront open and accessible to the public for us to connect with. An increase of 8 trains per day to 22.7 trains per day in our area goes from being a nuisance to a semi-permanent barrier that breaks our connection with the river, threatens our health, our safety, the economy in our area, and our quality of life, and our precious Mississippi River. We would like the Surface Transportation Board to strongly consider the impact this merger will have on our impacts, on the impact of our quality of life and on the Mississippi River as a whole. At the very least, we hope the Surface Transportation Board will require far greater mitigation for noise, air, and the potential for hazardous spills, and will consider the devastating impact this merger will have on our economy and our ability to connect with the river. We request that the Surface Transportation Board strongly consider this and the impact this merger will have on our region. To do this properly, we hope that the Surface Transportation Board will consider a pause and re-examine the impact this merger will have on the Mississippi River corridor. At the very least, we hope the Surface Transportation Board would require far greater mitigation than the minimal amount that CP has currently offered to our communities. The merger will forever change our riverfront and our connection to it. I would like to thank you for allowing me and all the other people to speak at this and express our concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Ritter. I think I had the, if my memory serves correctly, that had the pleasure of seeing you at the Davenport hearings.
That's correct.
And I just would again encourage you to make sure that these comments, in addition, you've already filed, I think earlier comments are filed again with the environmental docket in this case, because we want to make sure that that record is as complete as possible. But appreciate your taking time again to come and speak to us. Thank you.
Thank
you. And, if there are no questions, we'll move on. Thank you, sir. All right, our next.
Mr. Chairman, just one comment.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Your testimony reminded me of the wonderful times when I was living in Chicago. We used to go out on the Mississippi River to a power plant north of Dubuque in the dead of winter. It's usually the coldest weekend in January to go eagle watching, where the eagles all congregated where the water was open due to the warm water coming out of the power plant. And it is Mississippi River is certainly a jewel. So thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further for Mr. Ritter? All right, next up is Uffe Ostergaard. I hope I got that right, from Hapag-Lloyd. Mr. Ostergaard.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak today in support of the CP KCS combination. I hope you can all hear me okay. My name is Uffe Ostergaard. I'm the president of Hapag-Lloyd America. Hapag-Lloyd is a leading global liner shipping company and has been a long-standing customer of both CP and KCS. CP's network presently offers direct connections for our shipments moving to and from Canadian ports of Vancouver, Montreal, and St. John, and inland markets in both Canada and the United States Midwest. KCS's network offers direct connections for our shipments moving to and from Mexican ports and inland markets in Mexico to the United States. Hapag-Lloyd supports approval of the CP-KCS combination, as it would offer significant benefits that we're excited to see realized, and that will not happen without this transaction. This transaction will unlock new routes, new options, and new competition for Hapag-Lloyd and our customers. The CP-KCS combination will improve our access to markets along the West and Gulf Coast, and thanks to the CP-KC single line access to key US Midwest markets, we will be able to access important destinations like Chicago and Minneapolis via ports such as Lázaro Cárdenas and New Orleans. A CP-KCS combination will expand our access to ports, particularly the port of Lázaro Cárdenas, and the additional access will produce resiliency in the global container supply chain. For example, the combined CP-KCS network will create efficient single line service from Lázaro Cárdenas to those US and Canadian population centers, making Lázaro a valuable relief valve and offer customers yet another entry point to the North American market. while the combined rail water distance from some Asian ports to the key Midwest and Canadian destination markets via the port of Lázaro is further than that for other US West Coast ports, the extra distance is not a major handicap in providing reliable rail service to reach end markets and consumers. The key is really reliability and efficiency, and the CPKC single rail line service will offer a very attractive alternative for companies like ourselves and our many intermodal customers. With capacity available now and with customers seeking multiple options to route their cargo into and out of North America, the Port of Lázaro Cárdenas is also able to support container shippers who will benefit from the single line reach. With this potential opportunity in mind, Hapag-Lloyd America is currently working with several large customers to develop this service. We are currently booking trial shipments with key US-based importers and exporters. We have received positive feedback, and we are already seeing the first containers moving. We anticipate that once single line service is established, we will have a weekly service that offers customers the ability to route shipments to and from Chicago, Houston, Minneapolis, Toronto, and Kansas City, and Dallas using the Port of Lázaro and the CPKC combination. So in short, Hapag-Lloyd America supports the combination because it will extend service into new markets, which we currently do not reach today, to better meet the needs of US consumers. We therefore respectfully urge the board to approve the combination, and I would like to thank you all again for the opportunity to speak with you all today in support of this combination. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ostergaard. Are there any questions?
I have one.
Go right ahead, Patrick.
Thank you for being here. I'm wondering if you could first clarify the single line service you're describing that will go over the Laredo Gateway, correct?
Right.
Is it your view that the traffic that might be routed over the Laredo Gateway and out the port is CPKC would be in a highly competitive environment for that traffic?
For traffic through the west coast of Canada into the Midwest, yes.
And what about through the Laredo Gateway? Would that be a highly competitive lane for CPKC in competing with, say, trucks and other carriers?
I cannot argue that case. Certainly, I don't have the statistics to show how big a concentration of cargo movement, but I would assess that it would be a fairly small percentage of cargo moving in that corridor that would be controlled by this combination compared to trucking, for instance. But I don't have the data to show that, to be clear.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Ostergaard.
Pleasure. Thank you.
For making the effort to testify. Our next witness is Matthew Moore of Americold.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today in support of the CP-KCS combination. My name is Matthew Moore. I'm Vice President of Global Market Strategy at Americold Logistics. We're based in Atlanta. Americold, for those of you that are not familiar with our business, we're one of the largest providers of temperature-controlled storage in the world. Headquartered in Atlanta, we've operated for nearly 120 years. Our temperature-controlled storage and distribution network includes 250 facilities across the world, including 190 facilities in the U.S. Although Americold is not a direct customer of CP or KCS because we do not manage freight directly, our customers use their services, and we are very excited for the opportunity to create a 3-country temperature-controlled network underpinned by the single line network that can really only exist with the CP KCS combination. Because of this, Americold supports the approval of the CP KCS combination. We support this due to the benefits of a single line service linking Canada, the US, and Mexico that can only be achieved with the STB's approval for this combination. The benefits can be broken down from our perspective as follows. One, a reduction in carbon emissions supported by the conversion of truck to rail. Today, the majority of temperature controlled food, which is our business, moves by truck. In the future, the CP KCS combination will support the movement of some of these goods by rail and intermodal containers. The investments that CPKC will make as a result of the combination will allow for this. Second, a more competitive landscape for shippers, which are our customers. Thanks to the introduction of end-to-end single-line intermodal service, shippers will be able to, or we will be able to have more competitive choices to move their goods between Mexico, the US, and Canada. Since the majority of these goods are food products, it is important to note that increased competition should ultimately benefit consumers who today have been subjected to rapidly increasing cost of living. Third, the ability to create a temperature-controlled ecosystem driven by rail service. If the CP-KCS combination is approved, we have an opportunity to create a North American ecosystem built upon rail service to and from North America's key food production and consumption areas. The CPKC network will serve key protein producing and agriculture centers while also having access to large population centers. This combination, along with our existing extensive network, promises to deliver customers more choice and competitive transportation alternatives to what exists today, which will only benefit the lives of American, Mexican, and Canadian households. So in summary, Americold supports this combination due to the access to markets our customers cannot reach today on rail, the benefits that a single line CPKC network will provide North American consumers, in the investment we believe CPKC will unlock in the temperature controlled supply chain. With that being said, I therefore respectfully urge the board to approve this combination.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Do we have any questions for Mr. Moore? All right, sir. Thank you much for your time. Appreciate it. All right, we will move right along to the next, what is listed as the next panel. John Spain from the Baton Rouge Area Foundation. Mr. Spain.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is John Spain. I'm the Executive Vice President for the Baton Rouge Area Foundation. I also serve as the Vice Chairman of the Southern Rail Commission. We appreciate the opportunity to speak in favor of the proposed KCS-CP merger. This link in particular, if approved, would provide first-time passenger rail service between Louisiana's largest economies, the city of New Orleans and Baton Rouge. Also offer the opportunity for passenger rail across the northern part of our state on the I-20 corridor. And ultimately that track also continues from Shreveport to Baton Rouge, giving the state a north-south connection that it has sought for many years. I'd like to use my moment here in time to just first offer our thoughts and prayers to the people of Florida, which bring to mind one of the unique opportunities we see with the approval of this agreement. 17 years ago, New Orleans saw Hurricane Katrina devastate the city. For weeks and literally years after, the city has continued to recover. But in those immediate hours of Katrina hitting New Orleans, we put thousands of people in the Superdome. Ultimately, the roof leaked, people died, people struggled, and when the water rose, we had very little opportunity to bring new resources to the people in the Superdome. We have long sought the ability to use these passenger trains as part of the state's emergency response program to be able to bring people out of harm's way from the lower parts of Louisiana, particularly the city of New Orleans, to the city of Baton Rouge and further areas north in order to get them out of harm's way. In hurricanes, we generally have several days' notice of where they might go. And had we had trains available to us back in Katrina, we'd have been able to take those people not to the dome, but to other locations and get them out of the way of the storm. An extraordinary large number of the citizens of New Orleans do not have automobiles. In the Baton Rouge area, the first really highland north of New Orleans, we have created a health district. And in that health district will be a train station that will allow hospitals and nursing homes to evacuate out of New Orleans and bring them into our healthcare facilities in Baton Rouge, should that be necessary in a future storm. So as we look at the devastation our neighbors and fellow citizens are fighting in Florida, for those of us that lived through Katrina in Louisiana, it is a reminder of planning ahead, creating new ways to deal with emergencies and catastrophes that we did not have the tools to use back in 2005. Our support of this passenger railroad between our two cities is critical, not only for normal economic development, because we have significant numbers of people who live in each city and drive between each city each day, and this could very well become a workers' train, where people from each city who are unemployed or underemployed can use this as a vehicle should they not have an automobile to go to work in the petrochemical complexes located between our cities. So we see this opportunity with the cooperation of the merger between KCS and CP as a boon to our economy, a vehicle for moving people who otherwise could not get to jobs between our two cities, and the development of passenger service across the northern part of the state. But as we sit in the days following the hurricanes in Florida, it reminds us that these tools, these trains could be critical in terms of our bringing our citizens out of harm's way in the future. So we would ask you to give serious consideration of this merger. We support it, and we thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the state of Louisiana and its citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Do we have any questions for Mr. Spain?
Marty, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. Mr. Spain, thank you for coming before us this morning and for your testimony. I will say that I was on Capitol Hill at the time of Katrina, and there was discussion about train service and emergency service that moving individuals out of the city, and how there wasn't an ability to evacuate those either in hospitals or those who were not able to, your working class and poor who did not have the access. So what you're saying now was echoed 17 years ago, and it's something that was on our minds for many of us in Congress at that time. So I appreciate bringing that back to our attention. So thank you.
I thank you for your comments, and you're absolutely correct. There were conversations at the time, but it just couldn't get done. And so we hope that we'll have that opportunity to use rail for evacuation in the future. We pray we won't need to, but we want to be able to have that as part of our planning. And I thank you for your comments. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Spain? All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next witness, Martha Miller, Executive Director of the California Association of Port Authorities. Ms. Miller. Are you here?
I don't think I see her, Marty.
Apparently, Ms. Miller is not on Zoom. If she is able to join us later, we will hear from her. Then let's go to Gerardo Magno of Mastronardi Produce Limited. Mr. Magno.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. How are you? And good morning, Surface Transportation Board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today on support of the CP-KCS combination. My name is Gerardo Magno, and I'm the Vice President of Logistics for Mastronardi Produce Limited. We are a fourth-generation family-owned produce company and pioneer commercial greenhouses growing to North America. Our roots date back to the 1940s with a vision to provide people with incredible tasting fresh greenhouse-grown fruits and vegetables. Mastronardi Produce prides itself on producing consistently flavorful gourmet tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and berries, which it distributes from 7 company-owned lease and several other third-party distribution centers across Canada and the United States and Mexico. Currently, our produce ships from many locations, including locations in approximately 12 Mexican states and Laredo, Texas, to our distribution centers and customers throughout the United States and Canada. Mastronardi moved several loads in 2022 with KCS and CP independently to prove the concept of intermodal service for our products. The CP-KCS combination is exciting for us because it opens up transportation options that do not exist today. While the test has proven there is a concept, removing the issues associated with interline service and making this a single line service will make it even more attractive. The CP-KCS combination will extend CP's reliable service to new single line operations to the US, specifically routes from Mexico and Laredo, Texas to Livonia, Michigan, and across Canada will be served more efficiently versus truck. We are in a strategic industry in the controlled environment agriculture space, and having a single line service with cool, protected, and efficient transportation reduces both risk of contamination and food miles while further enhancing food security. Mastronardi moves up almost about 7,000 annual truckloads from Mexico to the US and Canada. We look forward to rail option that can compete with trucks and will shift shipments to rail. This new single line service will also create additional capacity, service, and carbon emission savings that are important and exciting to Mastronardi, our employees, partners, and customers. I'm advised that movement via CP-KC will generate approximately 7,815 metric tons or 64% and less GHG emissions than transporting the same goods via long-haul trucking. This is equivalent to approximately 1,680 gasoline cars taken off the road per year, or 985 homes energy use for a year. In short, Mastronardi Produce supports the CP-KCS combination because it will extend service by an already trusted rail partner to destinations we cannot efficiently reach today, creating new possibilities for us and for the fresh produce customers and markets that we serve. We therefore respectfully urge the board to approve the combination. I thank you again for the opportunity to speak on the support of the CP-KCS combination today. If there's any question, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Magno. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Magno? All right, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Our next witness is Mark McKendry from NFI Industries. Mr. McKendry.
Good morning. I'm trying to get video working. Can you see me?
We can.
All right. Okay, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today in support of the CP-KCS combination. My name is Mark McKendry, and I am the Senior Vice President of NFI Industries Intermodals Division. NFI is a leading third-party logistics provider based out of Camden, New Jersey, which offers award-winning domestic and international supply chain solutions to customers from various industries, including manufacturing, retail, food, CPG, and electronics. NFI is a family-owned and operated $4 billion organization and is a strategic partner of CP in both Canada and the United States. Our domestic intermodal product truly does span all North American Class 1s, meaning we have a relationship and understanding of their operating principles, their customer service, train service, regional strengths and weaknesses as well. Further, NFI has significant operations in the region served by both the Kansas City Southern and the Canadian Pacific Railway. NFI has 16,000 employees across the continent, operates approximately 70 million square feet of distribution space. We own 5,500 tractors, and we work with thousands more partner carriers. We have also over 13,000 trailers, and in summary, we have a really deep understanding of the North American supply chain, its dependencies, its strengths, and its weaknesses. Through this lens, it's important to note that long-haul intermodal constitutes a very small percentage of overall movements in the United States. The latest data available suggests that intermodal's share of the long-haul transportation market is under 7%, with the balance moving entirely on trucks. Trucks, which my organization really struggles to procure and certainly to seat with qualified drivers. And while it is our belief that truck will continue to be the dominant mode of transportation in the near term, truck's current share of market is simply unsustainable. The condition of the nation's interstate system and the corresponding increase in carbon emissions from continued growth of truck relative to rail is also cause for concern. One of the reasons intermodal fails to capture market share from truck is the complexity of interline movements. And while railroads endeavor to execute seamless interchanges, they operate sensitive networks, and it's often these interchange points where the biggest bottlenecks occur. This erodes customer experience and the reputation of intermodal more broadly. With nearshoring efforts and the incremental growth of the Mexican industrial segment, it necessitates an enhanced intermodal offering into and out of Mexico. We believe the new CPKC single line routes will help to serve that market, better balance share of market between truck and rail, and provide our customers with access to premier ports in the US Gulf, the Atlantic, and the Pacific coasts. From a competitive perspective, NFI does not view this combination as a risk to our customers' intermodal shipping rates. If the railroad does not achieve the appropriate balance of price and service, today's dynamic shippers would quickly abandon intermodal in favor of more truck. And as a consumer and provider of both rail and truck transportation, NFI supports the combination of two trusted rail partners, and we therefore respectfully urge the board to approve the combination. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak in support of the CP-KCS combination.
Hey, Mark, this is Robert Primus. I think Marty may be tied up, so I'll sort of take it from here until he comes back. Sure. I want to thank you for coming before us to testify. I want to see if is there any other board member? Does anybody have any questions for the witness?
None for me. Thanks, Robert.
Okay. If hearing none, Mark, once again, we thank you for your testimony, and we appreciate your presence here today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. I'm not going to take over for Marty. I'm going to give him a second. See, hopefully he can jump back on. That we'll continue the process. So we'll give him a couple of seconds. I'm not going to sing for you because then I'll chase everybody off the screen. So.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I had to dash off there for a moment, but I am back. I think that Mr. Hecht is not available. If he is, Michael Hecht is the next person on our list.
Hi, my name is Peter Wagner, reading a prepared statement from Michael Hecht, the panelist for the Southeast Louisiana Super Region.
All right, proceed, Mr. Wagner.
On behalf of the Southeast Louisiana SOLA Super Region, a partnership between the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, Greater New Orleans, Inc., and the South Louisiana Economic Council, we appreciate the opportunity to comment today in support of the proposed merger between Canadian Pacific Railway, CP, and Kansas City Southern Railway Company, KCS. We recognize the physical infrastructure of the track currently owned by KCS, terminating in New Orleans and extending northwest to Baton Rouge, as a major asset to the super region, to the domestic supply chain, and to international trade. This track connects Louisiana's two largest cities and major ports spanning the Mississippi River. We trust that CP will be a good neighbor within our communities and a responsible steward of this asset, ushering in logistical excellence and empowering economic growth, both for our region and for all customers who rely on our region for commerce and product delivery. In addition to servicing significant freight traffic, This track is on the verge to become a renewed node in the nation's intercity passenger rail network. The proposed New Orleans to Baton Rouge service has been long identified by SOLA as a super regional priority and by Amtrak in their long-term vision plan. According to past studies, 85% of our regional residents are in favor of passenger rail service between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, which is predicted to carry 200,000 riders annually. In December 2021, at a SOLA meeting, CP committed to opening capacity for passenger rail service between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. In February 2022, Amtrak filed an agreement with CP, which articulates a process for initiating a first and second daily round trip. In April 2022, Louisiana Governor John Bell Edwards, Secretary of Transportation Sean Wilson, Amtrak's President and CEO, and CP's President and CEO successfully conducted an inspection train. Now the state is progressing with an updated feasibility study to finalize the project. Implementation of passenger rail service between New Orleans and Baton Rouge would economically and culturally connect over 2 million residents throughout SOLA. It would benefit workforce mobility, job access, and quality of life on a household level while improving overall regional economic and health outcomes. Furthermore, passenger rail strengthens resilience by establishing an additional evacuation route, allowing for safe and efficient egress in the face of hurricanes and other emergencies. In conclusion, the SOLA Superregion supports STB's approval of its merger application, and we acknowledge the agreement between CP and Amtrak to initiate New Orleans to Baton Rouge passenger rail service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Appreciate your standing in. And I now understand that Martha Miller is available. Ms. Miller, if you are available, would you like to deliver your statement now?
Yes, please. Thank you. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties getting in, so appreciate it.
No problem. I was too.
Well, there you go. That makes two of us.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Martha Miller. I'm the Executive Director of the California Association of Port Authorities. We represent the 11 public ports in California from Humboldt down to San Diego, and including our 3 largest container ports, the ports of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Oakland. CAPA ports account for approximately 40% of the imports that come into the United States. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the proposed merger between Canadian Pacific and Kansas City Southern Railroads. Our organization is opposed to the merger because it would result in the shift of cargo, shipping capacity, and export opportunities from regions served by U.S. West Coast ports to Canada and Mexico, and would cause economic harm to our regional and national economies. The merger would greatly expand the trade corridors that connect non-U.S. ports to inland regions within the U.S. It would be a significant milestone in a series of steps taken by public and private entities in Canada that has resulted in increased cargo flows and shipping services through Canada at the expense of U.S. gateways and the workers and economies that depend on them. An approval of the merger would be another example of the U.S. government not taking seriously enough the competitive threat to U.S. ports and what the loss of cargo, ship calls, and ultimately the loss of key trade routes would mean to the national and local economies. Over the last 15 years, Canada has made it a top national priority to make significant coordinated investments in its West Coast ports and the multimodal infrastructure that supports them. These investments have supported the capture of cargo market share from U.S. ports. When U.S. ports lose cargo, we also lose the jobs involved in handling that cargo. Cargo diversion from our ports to those in Canada has also reduced ocean carrier calls and, importantly, the supply of returning empty containers that exporters depend on. This, in turn, increases shipping costs and erodes or eliminates the competitiveness of exports from states that depend on West Coast ports as their primary international trade gateway. At CAPA, we're proud of our strong record serving as the gateway for U.S. exports to the world and the global flow of goods to our local communities. U.S. ports are the backbone of our trade network, and the proposed merger places them at a greater risk of congestion and efficiency as carriers, containers, and other vital infrastructure assets would move on to Canada and Mexican ports. Canadian and Mexican ports are not viable alternatives for exporters in Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and many other parts of the country. These shippers have little recourse when ocean carriers reduce service to West Coast ports. The investments that the Canadian government has made to support the growth of Canadian ports and rail networks are commendable, can serve as an example for the United States. The concern we have is that the U.S. federal government has not responded to some of the efforts and investments to build more competitive trade routes and capture market share. Ultimately, a decision to approve this merger would result in American job losses and other economic harm, we believe. And it is on these grounds that we urge the Surface Transportation Board to reject the merger. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And I'm glad we were able to get you included in the hearing. We will now move on to the Dead River Company. There are two witnesses, Alan Dorr and Sandy Brown.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and the rest of the board, and thank you for the opportunity to speak at today's public hearing. My name is Alan Dorr, and I'm the Vice President of Wholesale and Procurement at Dead River Company. I would have preferred to not have to come to the STB to speak at this hearing, but circumstances have warranted us sharing our story. I would like to preface my comments by saying that we are neither in support nor opposition of this merger. Dead River Company was founded in 1909. It's the largest supplier of propane in the state of Maine and has a 50-plus year record of safe operations in the state of Maine. Propane is a vital component of Maine's and New England's energy portfolio. It is used commercially in manufacturing, for business and residential cooking, and most importantly, it's used by over 270,000 homes in the state of Maine for heating and cooking. Due to Maine's geographic location, the vast majority of propane arrives at various terminals throughout the state and throughout the region via rail car. We do not have local access to pipelines or refiners in this region. Accordingly, we greatly value our rail relationships tremendously, as rail is vital to the energy security of the state of Maine and the entire region. Dead River operates 7 rail terminals that receive propane from various sources in Canada and the United States to distribute to Maine and other New England states. One of these terminals is located in Hamden, Maine, in the Bangor area, and is captive to the CP as a result of the CMQ, the Central Maine and Quebec Railway transaction. Dead River is merely the consignee of shipments delivered to Hamden. Dead River does not have the relevant rail transportation contract. In fact, Dead River does not own any track at Hamden. All propane shipments are unloaded from the CP siding adjacent to the Hamden facility. Until CP was permitted to acquire the CMQ, we had a strong, mutually beneficial relationship with all of our rail partners. But now we have been unable to reach reasonable agreements with CP for this long-standing service, and it threatens to cause uncertainty or disrupt the supply of propane to Maine as we head into the winter. Dead River also recently acquired Maine Energy Incorporated, which also has a terminal that's captive to the CP in the Bangor area. Collectively, these two terminals are vital to the supply of propane heating fuel for central and northern Maine. CP has been seeking to impose terms never required before on the shipment of propane to Maine that are inconsistent with promises being made to the STB to support the CP-KCS merger, and which were also similar to what the CP claimed in the CMQ transaction. It's just a quick example in the short amount of time that I have. I note that the CP-KCS application states that all of the benefits will be achieved without any adverse impacts on any stakeholders, and that the transaction will enhance competition, improve the quality and capacity of rail transportation services, improve the environment, benefit shippers, and to do so without any adverse impacts. CP's actions are not consistent with these promises and are also anti-competitive. Again, in the interest of time, I will focus on only 2 of the terms that CP is attempting to force Dead River that are inconsistent with these promises, as well as being anti-competitive. OT 55. CP is attempting to contractually impose a set of guidelines called AAR OT 55 on our existing terminals that seemed aimed at requiring the terminals to move or close by this November. CP's business team has verbally assured us numerous times that this is not the case, but the proposed contract language continues to get worse. Dead River is committed to safety, but using a track use agreement as leverage against Dead River to force a move or closure of these terminals is inconsistent with what CP has told the STB in these transactions. Additionally, CP has imposed sourcing restrictions. Once CP acquired the CMQ, CP has imposed restrictions on inbound propane to be limited to origins that are on CP lines. Dead River is not the shipper of transportation of propane to the terminals, but even if it was, forcing the tying of service to the terminal and the accompanying short-term storage needed for that service to any requirement that the source of propane must originate on CP limits the supply of propane and is anti-competitive. Such a requirement would limit supply and increase costs of the crucial propane supplies that keep northern Maine homes warm in the cold winters. Many residents, businesses, and institutions in northern Maine are struggling economically and can ill afford to absorb the increased costs likely with such supply restrictions. None of these restrictions being imposed by CP exist at the other 5 rail terminals that we operate throughout the region that are on lines other than CP. So Dead River is asking the board to protect the vital energy supply for the state of Maine. Dead River recognizes that the STB cannot deny a larger transaction because of an applicant's actions in one state. However, the STB should admonish the taxes of railroads that come to the STB for transaction approval from using their newly acquired lines to impose terms inconsistent with their promises that are anti-competitive and that disrupt transportation to long-standing rail serve facilities. Thank you for the time and my opportunity to share our story. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Mr. Dorr, I'd like to pursue this a little bit. Where, maybe you said it and I just couldn't follow it without a map. Where is this is one of your terminals that is served by CP now?
Yes, served by CP in the state of Maine.
Where
Maine region.
Where is it?
In the Bangor region.
It's
the Bangor, Maine region.
Is this a terminal that was CM&Q and now is taken over by CP?
Correct. We've had this terminal for well over 50 years.
And what is the change that CP is imposing on you?
Well, they're asking us to be subject to OT 55 regulations. They're imposing additional insurance requirements. They're imposing restrictions on where we get our supply of propane, among other things.
You mean where the supply originates from and then interchanges with CP?
Correct.
With CP?
Correct.
What kind of a restriction is that?
Well, in normal times, it's not impactful, but when in the case of propane, there are times when propane gets tight in supply, so we have to go out and source it from wherever we can get it, and so that would restrict our sourcing or greatly economically disadvantage our sourcing if we were to be required to get propane that is not sourced on a CP line.
So are you saying that CP has informed you that if you attempt to obtain propane that initiates on another line and interchanges with CP, they won't deliver it to you?
No, they will deliver. It's just at a greater cost.
I take it at a cost that you regard as commercially prohibitive?
Yeah, it's prohibitive on the storage side of propane. So in the propane world, we need to store cars locally. You can't run a just-in-time inventory based on erratic weather demand. So the cost would come into the storage of cars.
The storage of cars on their line or
on their lines, yes.
I see. And they charge you more for storage of cars that originate on another line than cars that originate on CP? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Are you able to reveal the difference here, or is that something you don't want to discuss publicly?
I'd rather not discuss publicly, but it's definitely more.
Well, I'd like to follow up on that. And have you tried to resolve this with CP and they're not budging?
Yes, we're actively trying to resolve this with CP, and we're hoping to come to a reasonable conclusion shortly because we're entering into the heating season.
How would this merger, if it was approved, affect that situation?
Well, this particularly wouldn't impact us. We're just looking at this as based on this merger. Our experience with the latest merger of CP has been relevant to what could happen in the future.
I see what you're saying. So you're not asking us to impose a condition, I take it?
I'm not. No, like I said, neither oppose or support this merger. We don't have a dog in the fight, except for what's going on currently is inconsistent with the application.
All right. Are there any other questions for Mr. Dorr?
Yeah, just one quick one. Mr. Dorr, thank you for appearing this morning. How long has the issue gone on? I don't know if you said that during your testimony.
It's been pretty much since the CP acquired the CMQ. So a couple of years now.
Okay, so it happened over the last winter season.
Yes, and the season before that, it seems to be getting, the restrictions seem to be getting progressively a bit tighter over time.
Okay, and so as you say, they're getting tighter. So in what way?
Well, we had just a storage agreement in the first year, and then the second year they're looking for additional agreements to service our rail plant. So, and they're looking for track access agreements and OT 55 considerations.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Do they what do they tell you is the justification for charging a higher storage charge for cars that originated on another railroad than cars that originated on their railroad?
I've never really heard a justification. It's just that's the way it's been presented to us.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Karen.
About the insurance, what is the percentage increase in the amount of insurance, and is it available in the market? And is it comparable to what other railroads charge for or require for shipping propane?
So initially the insurance requirement was $100 million. They knocked that back to $50 million. We're able to get that insurance, so we can get that insurance, and CP does help with the cost of that insurance. However, it is far greater than any of our other terminals. Multiples greater.
Thank you.
All right. No further questions for Mr. Dorr. All right. We also have Sandy Brown. Are you here? You're here with Dead River, Ms. Brown?
I am. Mr. Dorr was providing the testimony.
So you're just observing. Would you wish to add anything?
Oh, it's better that lawyers don't speak.
That's what people say to me every day. Thank you.
This hearing would have been done a few days ago if that would have happened.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you both. If there are no further questions, we will move forward. I think we're actually at our last witness for today. Staff will correct me if I'm wrong. Rob Ritchie from Ingredion, who actually may not, I have a note that he might not be able to have been here. Apparently, he is not able to join us. I would say that I think he and Mayor Ellis from Monroe, Louisiana, were the two witnesses who unfortunately could not apparently reschedule to be with us. I would encourage them, if they have access to this communication, to submit their statements to us in writing, if they still choose, so we have their views in the record. With that, unless there is any other discussion from board members, I think we can recess until Thursday. Is there anything else that any board member wants to add or say at this point? All right, we are scheduled, we will recess until this Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And that hearing will be devoted entirely and solely to the rebuttal presentation of CP KCS. So with that, thank you all, and we'll see you Thursday morning.
Thanks, Marty.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.